And let us pray. From the service of morning prayer. Lord God, Almighty and everlasting Father, you have brought us in safety to this new day. Preserve us with your mighty power that we may not fall into sin nor be overcome by adversity. And in all we do, direct us to the fulfilling of your purpose. Through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Mm.
Amen. May we get out of God's way today. So, whoops.
Nice thought.
Here we go. What is going on? Try this again. Okay. I wanted just to remind us, we have read together the first 5 chapters of Job. We're just clicking along, which is great for us. I just wanted to remind us, just sort of set us in context of where we are. So, the first 2 chapters of Job are in prose, and then in chapter 3, it picks up and it's more poetic and almost like a series. We could imagine it being on stage, a series of monologues or soliloquies between first Job and then his various friends. But I just wanted to remind us of who these friends are. So, Job, the man of integrity, the man who's upstanding. The adversary, Satan, messes with him and says to God, it's all well and fine when things are going well for Job. What's going to happen if you strip everything away? And so Job starts to have all of these calamities. And this is toward the end of chapter 2. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all these troubles that had come upon him, each of them set out from his home. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They met together to go and console and comfort him. When they saw him from a distance, they didn't recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept aloud. They tore their robes and threw dust in the air upon their heads. They sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. That was their initial reaction to him. And so last week, we heard from the first of the 3 friends, Eliphaz, and I just wanted to remind us of some of the highlights of his counsel. We can decide what kind of pastoral counsel he gave. He says to Job, "Do not despise the discipline of the Almighty." And then he goes on, "You shall be hidden from the scourge of the tongue and shall not fear destruction when it comes. At destruction and famine you shall laugh and shall not fear the wild animals of the earth. For you shall be in league with the stones of the field, and the wild animals shall be at peace with you. You shall know that your tent is safe. You shall inspect your fold and miss nothing. You shall know that your descendants will be many, and your offspring like the grass of the earth. You shall come to your grave in ripe old age, as a shock of grain comes up to the threshing floor in its season." And I just wondered if anyone had any further thoughts on Eliphaz's response to Job, and Job is saying, "Oh, it would be better that I had never been born," and all of this. Did anyone have any further?
I can't figure out if it's foreshadowing or irony that he is, Job's children have been killed, all his material goods have been taken away, and here is this guy saying, if you just believe,
Yep.
all this will be, life will be wonderful.
Yep.
And I mean, maybe it's foreshadowing that he gets it all back, but at the time, it just almost seems to be rubbing it in.
It doesn't sound like very good pastoral care, does it? One of the commentaries that I was looking at this week said it would be like, and this is horrible, but it would be like saying to someone whose child has died, "Well, you have other children, don't worry." That's little cold comfort in the face of all that's been taken away from him. Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah, while Patty is gone, we can discuss what our feeling would be if she'd used that pastoral counseling on us at some point.
A cold stare, I think.
Yeah.
Ask
Sudden
Mr.
flight to Methodism.
Anything else about Eliphaz?
is useless.
Yeah. I know, with friends like that, right? And the other thing we talked about last week, he said, well, as for me, I would trust God. It's like, oh, shut up.
Right.
Very helpful. Oh, dear. Yeah. He is not the kind of person I would want consoling me.
I tried that before.
There's a reason Job's comforters have become a cliche.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm.
Well, as we move on into chapter 6, I thought it would be helpful just to pay attention today. But what is it that Job is really asking for from his friends? Um, and so let's just bear that in mind. And let me get back to chapter 6. Would somebody like to read? We found last week that it kind of works best if one voice reads a whole soliloquy, or at least a big chunk of it. Would someone like to read chapter 6 for us? I can scroll for you if you're willing.
My page is unresponsive.
Okay. Can you see our?
Let me see if I can.
Can you see it on the screen?
Sure.
Okay. I'll scroll for you, Fred.
Okay. Oh, that my vexation were weighed and all my calamity laid in the balance, for then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash. For the arrows of the Almighty are in me. My spirits drink their poison. The terrors of God are arrayed against me. Does the wild ass bray over its grass, or the ox low over its fodder? Can that which is tasteless be eaten without salt? Is there any flavor in the juice of the mallows? My appetite refuses to touch them. They are like food that is loathsome to me. Oh, that I might have my request and that God would grant my desire, that it would please God to crush me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. This would be my consolation. I would exult even in unrelenting pain, for I have not denied the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should wait? And what is my end that I should be patient? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh bronze? In truth, I have no help in me, and any resource is driven from me. Those who withhold kindness from a friend forsake fear of the Almighty. My companions are treacherous like a torrent bed, like swollen streams that pass away, that run dark with ice, turbid with melting snow. In time of heat, they disappear. When it is hot, they vanish from their place. The caravans turn aside from their course. They go into the waste and perish. The caravans of Tema look, and the travelers of Sheba hope. They are disappointed because they were confident. They come there and are confounded. Such you have become to me. You see my calamity and are afraid. Have I said, make me a gift, or from your wealth offer a bribe for me, or save me from my opponent's hand, or ransom me from the hand of oppressors? Teach me and I will be silent. Make me understand how I have gone wrong. How forceful are honest words, but your reproof, what does it reprove? Do you think you can reprove words as if speech of the desperate were wind? You even cast lots over the orphan and bargain over your friend. But now be pleased to look at me, for I will not lie to your face. Turn, I pray, let no wrong be done. Turn now, my vindication is at stake. Is there any wrong on my tongue? Cannot my taste discern calamity?
Thank you, Fred. Great dramatic reading. Um, so, what is Job asking for here?
A little sympathy.
Maybe comprehension of his pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Release from his pain, certainly.
Yeah, what is he really saying to his friends? What doesn't he want?
What they've been giving him up until now.
Yeah. He says, have I said, make me a gift, or from your wealth offer a bribe for me, or save me from an opponent's hand, or ransom me from the hand of the oppressors? He's not asking for, for money or support or intervention.
This
But
kind of reminds me of what, they say, when women and men complain. When a woman complains, she just wants to be heard, and a man comes along and offers an explanation and a strategy and
it.
Fix
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. My husband and I have these conversations I just want you to listen to me. Don't try to fix it.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That's not what I'm asking.
Exactly. Exactly. Is there anything that leaps out at you all in this ongoing rant against? So when Job is talking, even though it's Eliphaz who's most recently spoken, Job is really responding to all three of them collectively.
In 24, he says, what did I do to deserve this? Just tell me, what did I do to cause all this?
Yeah, that's at 24 that jumps out at me.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, they have said, trust God and God will make you, prosperity gospel. God will make you rich and give you children and, and all that. And he's saying, show me where I went wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Eliphaz in his speech was not very specific at all. It was sort of this lofty, as you say, Fred, just trust, just have faith. And Job is, wanting to drill down. He wants more specifics. How forceful are honest words? Tell me the truth. You're not helping me if you give me all this pablum. I really want to hear, what is it that I've done? Help me to understand. I'm trying to work this out, and you're really not helping very much.
And he's saying that your reproof, what does it reprove? Why are you reproving me? This is not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was my fault, then tell me how I can fix it. But,
Exactly.
but you're just blathering at me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, what is their alternative? They can't tell him, where he's gone wrong. They can't tell him how to fix it. They can't, they really don't, they have limited options other than just to sit there and Job is the one who is asking them to, how I went wrong.
I guess he's asking them to find some other words, because he's saying, what is my strength that I should wait? I mean, why are you telling me to wait? Why should I be patient? I'm not made of stone or bronze. There's nothing that I seem to be able to do with this. Any resources driven from me.
Well, the only other option would be the one his wife recommended: curse God and die. He wants some other alternative that no one can see.
Which I guess is the theme of Job. What do you do when all that's left is to curse God and you won't do that?
Mm-hmm.
What was it, at verse 16 there? No, I'm sorry, it was further, but it
Further down?
doesn't matter. I don't need to go right to it. Yeah, teach me now, 24. I think in modern language, I would hear that as saying, I've got to process this. I've got to understand it. I've got to go back and
see where I've gone wrong.
See where I have gone wrong, how I have contributed to this or not, and find another way through it, because I don't see a way through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So don't scold me. Help me here.
Yeah.
And listening, I guess, is part of that help, or asking questions might be part of that help. But telling him pablum doesn't do it.
Well, they'd already sat there 7 days.
Well, and that's what I wanted to go back to. Exactly. I wonder if maybe that was the most helpful thing. Just as as people might say these days, I think we've used this expression before, just holding space for Job, being present, being a companion with, but not necessarily being able to explain because it's inexplicable.
Sounds like it was sitting Shiva,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
which I could take in a couple ways. Yes, holding the space, certainly, and getting the emotional bleeding to stanch a little, but also that the ritual grieving has been done, and I am still in immense pain. The ritual doesn't help, or hasn't solved the problem.
7 days seems like a long time. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's overstatement or what.
7 days of house guests would take your mind off your problems.
Well, yeah.
Well, I think 7 days is just, there's a ritual boasting almost that, Beowulf swam for 3 days with his friend before they killed the sea monster. And, it just means a long time.
Yeah.
Well, and 7, as we've talked about before, 7 is one of those biblical numbers, right? And
That's true.
7 and 3 and 40, that, a long time. It's a number of completion, of wholeness. God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day rested. Excuse me, one more second.
How long is Shiva sat? Is that 7 days, or I thought it was 8? Or
Thought it was 8, but
so this is just a magical 7 rather than a traditional.
Well, the 8th day takes you into a new week,
Liturgical.
new life.
Well, this whole thing illustrates the eternal problem of what do you say to somebody who's suffering?
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's an object lesson in what not to say. I don't know. We haven't read the rest of it.
Yeah.
When one is preparing for ordination, you have to go through clinical pastoral education, which for most seminarians is a summer served at a hospital or a senior facility or something where you're really doing intense pastoral care. And that's always the issue for these young and idealistic, generally young seminarians who are so eager to just get in and have the right prayer and the right ritual. And so often it's a matter of stripping all that away and realizing that there really isn't anything that a human can say, and that the most important and most effective thing to do is simply to be present and shut up, get out of God's way, right?
Yeah.
And that was, I know for myself and pretty much all of my clergy friends, that's the biggest and most challenging learning, is that we want to have just the bon mot, the right thing to say. And it, you can't.
There isn't any.
There isn't any.
Yeah.
There just isn't. And it's so hard for us as humans because we want to have agency and we want to fix, especially if people are inclined to help. And there's just, there's nothing. You're standing at the edge of the abyss and looking. Are there any words or phrases that jump out or that you want to look at in the Hebrew, or do you want to move on? What's your pleasure?
I love that phrase. The arrows of the Almighty are in me.
That's evocative, right? It says it.
Save that one for later.
Yeah. I just wanted to, let's see, what chapter?
I kind of struck by what comes after that. Does the wild donkey bray when it has grass, or an ox bellow when it has fodder? he's sort of admitting that he's only complaining because things are going against him.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that means?
It's sort of what the adversary was saying before, right? To the Almighty, saying, yeah, Job is a great guy. Yeah, he's upright. Yeah, he has integrity. But what's going to happen if you take everything away? Yeah.
That, God be, and then he goes on, willing to crush me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, back to Fred's point, we never ask that when something good happens. We deserve that.
Exactly.
We worked hard for that. We plan for it,
Of course.
We're smart.
We deserve it.
We're
That's
smart.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the core of advertising. You deserve this.
There you go.
For $99.99, this too can be yours. And
Yeah.
yeah. Just wondering if there were any words. Let's see. Oh, that my request might come to pass. Oh, here comes Nancy. Yay. She was hoping to join us today.
Yeah, a sip of your water.
This translation that you have up is, of course, quite different. I was surprised in a Marriott hotel not to have a Bible here. I'm a little disappointed because generally they have both books, but as you say, that the translations are so different.
Yeah.
Hey, Nancy.
Hi.
How are you? I'm so glad you can join us today.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm late and I'll probably be coming in and out. I'm really sorry.
Don't be. We're just so glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
That's always the deal. Come when you can. And that's fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous. So we are, Job has just been responding to the first friend who's tried to offer him some counsel. And we all sort of agreed that it's not the kind of pastoral care any of us would want to receive. And so Job, is responding and basically saying, tell me what I've done wrong. I'm trying to understand. And you're not being very useful. And so one thing, let's see, there was this one I love, verse 15. My companions, 14 and 15 and following, those who withhold kindness from a friend forsake the fear of the Almighty. My companions are treacherous like a torrent bed, like swollen streams that pass away, that run dark with ice, turbid with melting snow. In time of heat, they disappear. When it is hot, they vanish from their place. And it's such an evocative image. The Hebrew there, my brothers have acted deceitfully like a wadi, like torrents of wadis which vanish. So, a gushing stream in the desert. It's almost like he's saying, your fair weather friends, when I really need you in the desolation and the heat and the, in those wilderness times, you're gone.
But they're there.
Yeah, but they're there.
They have nothing to offer him that he's going to accept.
Right. And that's his point, is that, you're here, but there's, when I really need you, what you have to offer me is not helpful.
You have no water for me.
Yeah.
But is there any water to be had?
Well, that's the question, right?
Yeah, they have offered him what they have.
What they can, because
what he has given other people in times of, when it's happened to somebody else.
Remember and try to adjust this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of an unfair criticism of them.
Yeah.
To say
there's a lot that's unfair here. But I agree with you, because they're doing their best, right? They're humans too. And It's an interesting thing to reflect about.
I mean, are his friends the caravans that turn aside from their route and go into the wasteland because the stream has dried up?
Hmm.
And it's not the caravan's fault that they're going to where they've always gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe that's what the caravans of Tima and the travelers of Sheba are hoping for water, and the wadi is dried up.
Yeah, but it's not the caravan's fault the wadi dried up. I just, I mean, I sort of see Job as, and I certainly am guilty of this myself on occasion. I think, there's nothing that's going to satisfy him while he's hurting and in pain.
Exactly. Nothing that a human can give him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God doesn't appear to be giving him, the good end of the stick at this point.
Should we move on to chapter 7?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see what the next guy's got to say.
All right. So Job is going to continue in his rant. That's probably not fair to say rant, but his soliloquy continues. Would someone like to read chapter 7? It's a little bit shorter than 6 was.
I'll do it if nobody else wants to.
Would someone else like to read?
I'll give it a stab.
Thank you, Ellie. I'll scroll for you.
Okay, thanks. Do not human beings have a hard service on earth, and are not their days like the days of a laborer, like a slave who longs for the shadow, and like laborers who look for their wages? So I am allotted months of emptiness, and nights of misery are apportioned to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I rise? But the night is long, and I'm full of tossing until dawn. My flesh is clothed with worms and dirt. My skin hardens, then breaks out again. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and come to their end without hope. Remember that my life is a breath. My eye will never again see good. The eye that beholds me will see me no more. While your eyes are upon me, I shall be gone. As the cloud fades and vanishes, and those who go down to Sheol do not come up, they return no more to their houses, nor do their places know them anymore. Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I the sea or the dragon that you set a guard over me? When I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I would choose strangling and death rather than this body. I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone, for my days are a breath. What are humans that you make so much of them, that you set your mind on them, visit them every morning, test them every moment? Will you not look away from me for a while? Let me alone until I swallow my spittle. If I sin, what do I do to you, you watcher of humanity? Why have you made me your target? Why have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I shall lie in the earth. You will seek me, but I shall not be.
Thank you.
Who's he talking to?
That's the question.
Eliphaz or God?
Who is he talking to?
Both?
Any other thoughts of who he's talking to?
It sounds at first as though he's talking to his friends, but then at the end it's just sort of he's not blaming God, but he's reproaching a bit.
So this is the first time, let me move those arrows. This is the first time in the book of Job that Job actually starts to talk to God. And it's really, I guess, at about verse 8. The eye that beholds me will see me no more. While your eyes are upon me, I shall be gone. And then he keeps going on. Am I the sea or the dragon that you set a guard over me? When I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions. Um, and then verse 17, what are humans that you make so much of them, that you set your mind on them, visit them every morning, test them every moment? I just want to do one thing. I should have preloaded it in my slide deck here. Here comes Donna. Yay.
Mm.
Hey, Donna.
Hey, sorry to
Glad
be
you
late.
made it. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
All
So
of us.
we're just looking at chapter 7 of Job, and Job has just started finally addressing God and, asking, because before this he's been talking to his friend Eliphaz, well, actually all three of his friends, but mostly Eliphaz, who's the first to have spoken. And now he's starting to talk to God. And I was just looking at verses 17 and following. What are humans that you make so much of them, that you set your mind on them, visit them every morning, test them every moment? Will you not look away from me for a while? Let me alone until I swallow my spitting. And I wanted to remind us all of Psalm 8. And Psalm 8 is one of the Psalms of praise. And as you probably know, there are different kinds of Psalms. Some are Psalms of lament, and some are Psalms of praise. And Psalm 8 is a praise. Lord, how majestic is your name. You've set your glory in the heavens. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, what is mankind that you are mindful of them, human beings that you care for them? And the psalmist here is really saying, you are so powerful, God. You have created all the universe, everything that is, all of creation. It's amazing that you bothered to take the time to care for us. We are so blessed and grateful that you take the time to care for us. Job sort of twists the psalm a little bit, and it definitely picks up that same language. What are humans that you make so much of them? You visit them, look away from me. So he's taking this and saying, it's not a good thing that God is paying attention to me.
Not the attention that's being paid.
Yeah. And we talked last time about King Lear, right? Where Shakespeare talks about, humans are mortals are flies to God, flies that are being played with, like little boys play with flies and pull off their wings. That's how God treats humans. There's some of that here in Job. Please stop paying so much attention to me. I'd rather, thanks, but no thanks. Anything else that you all notice in this chapter?
This is the first time he's asked God, for a rationale.
Yeah, exactly.
If I have sinned, what have I done to you? You who see everything we do.
Exactly.
Why have you made me your target? Have I become a burden to you?
Me. Yeah. And up until this point, Job has withstood the pressure, and he has refused to blame God or even interrogate God. And no matter what is taken away, he hasn't gone there, but now he's starting to go there.
Well, his response to his wife was, if we took the good, we have to take the bad too.
Correct.
Now he's saying, if it's this bad, I expect an explanation.
Thought it would be interesting to look at this concept of hope in Hebrew, because in the book, ironically, the book of Job uses this word for hope more than any other book in Hebrew scripture. So it's verses 5 and 6. My flesh is clothed with worms and a crust of dirt. Isn't that evocative? My skin hardens and comes.
Yeah.
My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle and come to an end without hope. Ugh. And this word for hope is it's the same word as for cord or thread. So it's the idea that a weaver's shuttle is going back and forth and then the thread runs out. Um, and so he's saying, his thread is running out, that, he's been holding on, but he's come to the end. And so his hope is waning. I just thought that was such a great image for hope that, almost as though as long as the thread is going, you know, there is hope. There's promise that something is being created, something is being woven. But eventually that thread's going to stop. And so he's kind of saying he's at the end of that. But you can see that Job uses this word more than anybody else in Hebrew scripture. Um, Anything else here about Job's response? So again, we hear this twisting of Psalm 8, the psalm that is meant to be a psalm of praise. And Job has internalized that language and then says, that's not quite so much how it is, at least for me.
And 20, it looks like, why are you taking me so seriously?
Yeah.
I'm not worth it. Just don't bother.
Exactly. Please avert your gaze from me. Don't look at me. I'm thinking about, my kids when when they were younger, and sometimes they didn't like being the object of their parents' attention because it usually meant that they had done something they ought not to have done, and they just wanted to kind of fly under the radar. And sometimes it's not so easy to do that. If I sin, what do I do to you, you watcher of humanity? And he says that almost as though that's an insult, you watcher of humanity. I would much rather not be in your gaze.
Why am I so important to you?
Yes.
But
Yes.
why have you, what is it about me that you're doing this focus that is not very comfortable?
He wants to know why something bad is happening to him.
And if you who are the creator of the universe and are watching everything, and there's this idea almost of this, the clockmaker God who sets everything up and then stands back and just observes. If you're watching everything, why in the world are you paying attention to me? How could I possibly be interesting or important enough to merit this kind of scrutiny? Anything else, or should we move on to chapter 8, which I think is where we hear from Bildad? Yes.
I would just note that there is no idea of an afterlife in Job's.
Mm-hmm.
He lives for a short time, he dies.
Yep.
And there isn't any thought of a balancing out of the scales later on.
And death, for him at least, is seen as a relief, right? It's like,
Yeah.
please bring it on. Let's just get this over with. There's no point in persisting like this.
But one of the concepts that Christianity quite often uses is it'll all be made up to you later.
Pie in the sky.
There is justice eventually.
Certainly when we have been reading those apocalyptic texts like the Gospel of Mark, where it's very clear that the suffering that the earliest believers are going through will be redeemed, right? And this, that's not the understanding, the cosmology or the theology that once life is over, it's over. Well, hello. Good morning. All right. Well, why don't we see what Bildad has to say to Job? See if he's any better. Would somebody like to read this one is a little shorter again. Would someone like to read this soliloquy?
I'll try that.
Thank you, Chuck.
Then Bildad the Shuhite answered, how long will you say these things, and the words of your mouth will be a great wind? Does God pervert justice or the Almighty? Competition. Or does the Almighty pervert the right? If your children sinned against him, he delivered them into the power of their transgression. If you will seek God and make supplication to the Almighty, if you're pure and upright, surely he will rouse himself for you and restore you to your rightful place. Though your beginning was small, your latter days will be great. For inquire now of bygone generations and consider what their ancestors have found. For we are but of yesterday, and we know nothing, for our days on earth are but a shadow. Will they not teach you and tell you and utter words out of their understanding? Can papyrus grow where there is no marsh? Can reeds flourish where there is no water? While in flower and not cut down, will they wither before any plant? Sure, the paths of all who forget God, the hope of all godliness, shall perish. Their confidence is gossamer, a spider's house their trust. One leans against the house, it will not stand. If one lays on it, it will not endure. The wicked thrive before the sun, and their shoots spread over the garden. Their roots twine about the stone heap, and they live upon the rocks. If they are destroyed from their place, and then it will deny them, saying, I have never seen you. See, these were their happy days, and out of earth still others will spring. See, God will not reject the blameless, nor will the hand of the evildoers. He will fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the tent of the wicked shall be no more.
Thank you. So what do you all think about Bildad's response?
It's the prosperity gospel.
If you are pure and upright, surely then he will rouse himself for you and restore you to your rightful place.
Your children's fault for sinning against him, and that's why he destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking that in the Old Testament, the Jews had so many stipulations and so many things, rules they had to follow on a certain schedule, and that is that was their idea, I think, of righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could say, well, I sacrificed these animals when I should have, and I went to temple and I said this prayer, and I haven't committed adultery, then I am a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the New Testament, that isn't necessarily true. Those following those scriptures doesn't do it for you. So I kind of see some of that in here, like you've followed the rules to the letter, and now surely it's going to be payback time for you.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking when you said that, Donna, I think we might have mentioned this before, maybe it's just in my head. The rich young man in the Gospels who approaches Jesus, and he says, I have done all these things, exactly what you said. I've kept all the commandments. And Jesus says, but you need to do one more thing if you're going to be my disciple, my follower. You have to leave everything. And he can't do that. And so it's like, the following the law to the every dot and tittle isn't sufficient. That just reminded me of that.
There is a unspoken assumption in this that if you're a good person, you'll have a good life.
Yep.
And I'm thinking about, Gautama, the Buddha, who started off with an opposite thing, that life is bound to have suffering and pain, and you can't escape that.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you want to, you can still be happy. For Job, there is no way to escape. There is no path to happiness. That, they all seem to have been foreclosed on him.
This is sort of the opposite of last week we read man is born for trouble as sparks fly upward. It's almost a different well, it is a different voice. I mean, it's Bildad, but it's really a different philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so helpful to hear different voices read the whole of the speech, because it's a reminder to us that it's really a dialogue, right? And it's this dialectic going back and forth between, this is what I think, and I want God to stop looking at me, and Bildad says, but you need to seek God. You need to continue to be pure and upright, and so back and forth they go. I love this beginning of what Bildad says. How long will you say these things, and the words of your mouth be a great wind? It's like, if some biblical insults are really good, and I think we need to just them, because you could really, fling something at another person. The words of your mouth be a mighty wind. And
he follows it up with, does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the question that Job is asking continuously. How did he pervert what is right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is justice?
Well, and Bildad's asking, does God pervert justice? And and that's a rhetorical question, isn't it? So Bildad is saying, by definition, if it's of God, it's just and right. So you must be the problem, or your children must have been the problem.
Yeah.
So
I blame children all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the opposite of the sins of the father shall be visited upon the children, right? This is the sins of the children have
Visited on the father.
Yeah, have caused deep pain and anguish for the father. But Bildad just shuts Job down. The words of your mouth are a great wind. It's like you're not saying anything.
But his rationale,
whose rationale? Bildad's?
Yeah, is not borne out by anything in the text.
Mm-hmm.
He knows more than we do.
Well,
and once again, it's this hopeful vision. It's almost apocalyptic in and of itself, kind of like Eliphaz's response. God will not reject the blameless, bless you, nor take the hand of evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the tent of the wicked will be no more. So, in the fullness of time, Bildad is saying, this will be turned around, but you're not there yet.
I am impressed that Bildad seems to be confident in his understanding and knowledge of God's will and how God works.
Mm-hmm.
He's not covered in boils.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. And
And that's the tension, right? And going back to what Chuck said before, is that when things are going well for us, we, it's easy to say, God is on our side, God's taking care of us, but it's when all of that is taken away, do we still, can we still trust? And should we still trust? I guess that's the other piece of the dilemma. Um, is that appropriate to continue to be hopeful? These are just the questions that this text sets up for us.
Patty, can we take a look at the verse 19 or 20 further down? See, these are their happy ways. I don't understand. Have you got a different translation that might have some idea?
So you want 19?
Yeah, 19.
Okay, let's see. His roots wrap around a rock pile. He grasps a house of stones. If he's removed from his place, then it will deny him, saying, I never saw you. Behold, this is the joy of his way. Out of the dust, others, was it this word? And out of the dust, others will spring. Come on. Exultation, joy, rejoicing. Interesting, it's a word that appears in Isaiah a bunch.
But that the translation that this is your translator is, see, these are their happy ways. It comes out very differently when you say this is the joy of his way with a capital H. I guess nobody can figure that out.
I know we have a few different translations here. Does anybody have a different translation for verse 19?
Verse 19 in New English, it comes out, that is how its life withers away and other plants spring up from the earth.
And Fred, what does yours say?
But when it is torn from its spot, that place disowns it and says, I never saw you. Surely its life withers away, and from the soil other plants grow. Surely God does not reject one who is blameless or strengthen the hands of evildoers.
So nobody knows what 19 means.
And that's sort of what this footnote says, meaning of Hebrew uncertain. It's like when the scholars just can't work it out, they'll just say, it's a mystery. So we've fallen into the abyss of the Hebrew there. Bless you.
Well, I think there is certainly, that you may prosper for a while and wrap your roots around the rocks, but once you're disowned, once you're torn away, no one's going to care. And that, I don't know, God cares if you're I'm not sure that it quite follows that surely God does not reject one who is blameless. Because that keeps, Job keeps asking, why have you rejected me?
That 20 doesn't follow from 19. The metaphor stops, I think, at the plant on the rock, the roots and the
Right.
And he's going back to summing up his theology, which God will not spurn the blameless man or grasp the hand of the wrongdoer. Well,
I do see a link there, though, because at the beginning of this, the block about the wicked, there we go. When papyrus grow when there's no marsh, it can reeds flourish when there's no water. If you are, it was there. The fact that these people, the evil ones, have no marsh or water, or who have forgotten God. But if you haven't forgotten God, then you won't be blameless, and then God will remember you. Does that make any sense?
Do you think these friends think that Job is hiding some deep, dark, secret sin that they don't know about, and that's what's caused all this? That's what it sounds like to me.
I think so.
Oh, you got a point. Mm.
And it reminds, we talked a little, I think it was last week, we talked about in John's gospel when people bring to Jesus the man born blind, right? And they say, who sinned, this young man or his parents, that he's blind? So there's always supposed to be this causality, that there must be, it's a one-to-one correspondence. If you're suffering, then somewhere deep down there's some sin. Either it's your sin or your parents' sin. And I think they are trying to dig that up, Jackie, because it sounds, it's like there's got to be something. Have
Yeah, just confess it.
Yeah.
Come on, out with it.
Yeah, and then God can forgive you, and
We can all go home.
Or maybe not.
Isn't that what Job's anguish is about, trying to get at that and discover what is deep inside that he has missed?
Mm.
And that the pain is in not being able to find that, no matter how hard how much introspection we would say he's doing, it ain't there.
And that's what he wants his friends to tell him, help me understand. Let me see what's going on, what this is that I've done. It reminds me of, every time I have a computer issue and the expert, the tech person will say, well, you had to have done something, Patty, because, you didn't respond to what you've, and I always say, no, I didn't do anything. But you had to have, because it wouldn't just spontaneously do that. It kind of reminds me of that they're saying, Job, come on. You must have pushed the escape button. You must have done something you ought not to have done. Because it doesn't work that way. Things wouldn't have just shut down on you had you not done something inappropriate.
there is a rejection of randomness here. This is a God who is right there. He didn't step back, and it's not a clockwork universe. He is in charge of making the sun rise every morning, and making sure that the fish jump or the birds sing or whatever.
Yep.
It's the same God who's sees you when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake in Job's light.
And is supposed to be Santa Claus if you're good.
Yeah.
And so let's hold that thought, because that's absolutely essential to this text. So what do we do with the randomness? And it's just, it's this wrestling to come to some understanding of how is it that bad things can happen to good people? Why does this happen? And it seems to be a human trait, just a struggle to make sense of that can't possibly be, that there can't be random things that happen. Hold that thought.
There has to be cause and effect. And I think it occurs to me that that's linked to our desire to see sacrifice as necessary.
Right, precisely. And if you think back to the beginning, when Job is first introduced to us, he says that, or the narrator says that Job has made sacrifices on behalf of his children just in case they've done anything, and so therefore he should be covered. That's exactly right, Fred. Yeah.
And that was really, I think, one of Jesus's innovations was you don't need sacrifice.
Right, precisely. And that's probably what is so hard for some people to grasp about Jesus, because we want it to be this one-to-one correspondence. And so then that gets into the whole idea of grace, that, God gives us what we don't deserve. Thanks be to God, because if we got what we really deserve, we'd be in big trouble.
Well, he gave Job what he didn't deserve too.
Right. But you were talking about, with Jesus.
Good things.
Yeah. All right. Well, is this a good place to stop?
Yeah.
We'll pick up at chapter 9 next week. Were you going to say something, Ray?
More than I should have. So I'll stop here. We'll go back to it. Let's talk about random sometime, though.
Let's definitely talk about
And free will.
Correct.
Yeah.
All of this is brought up in this text. Good.
Okay, so we've got a theme for next week.
We do. All right. Well, thank you all. And Nancy, I'm so glad you're here. Marietta, we're always thrilled that you're here. Donna, I'm so glad you made it back. Ellie's in Ocean City and still able to participate. We are good.
We're booked here on purpose.
Thank you. That was great.
And
Bye-bye, everybody.
and
It's
the
good to
Joe
see
Bye.
Cash
Thank you.
household with Pat
Bye.
is with us. All right, everybody. See you next time.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.